Welcome back, and welcome to the first episode in this three-part year-end arc. This November's episode is called What Still Counts. It stands on its own, but it opens the conversation. Will continue into December and January. Now, every November, people across higher education, faculty, staff, administrators, emerging scholars, department chairs, program directors, you name it, whatever your position is within the academy, we and they begin to feel something shift under our respective feet. I often say the landscape of higher education is always changing. Sometimes slowly, like erosion, other times suddenly, like an earthquake or even a volcano, reshaping everything around it in a matter of hours. In my work with faculty and leaders across institutions, after 25 plus years of watching these cycles, I could tell you that these shifts are both emotional and structural. And what many people are feeling right now isn't just burnout or fatigue, it's ambiguity. And that is the real emotional culprit this season. Today, we're going to name that, we're going to widen the frame, and we're going to explore what still counts. So let's begin. November has a certain honesty to it. At least I think it does. It's when the truth rises to the surface. The truth about your workload, the truth about your department culture, the truth about shifting priorities, the truth about your ambition and the emotional cost of it, the truth about what still matters to you and what doesn't. So before we go further into this episode, and we get centered and grounded, um, I would invite you to inhale once, lift your shoulders, bring them back, lower your shoulders, and notice where you feel this semester in your body. Then exhale. No judgment, just notice. Now, across campuses this fall, the shifts have been undeniable. Entire colleges merging programs or shuttering completely. AI-driven curriculum reviews coming faster than faculty can adapt. State level mandates reshaping what can and cannot be taught. Leaders asked to innovate while cutting budgets, staff absorbing unprecedented emotional labor with fewer resources, enrollment shifts continuing to pressure everything from class size to course offerings. That's a list, but it's not even an exhaustive list. But I'm exhausted reading it. Now, this is the landscape that you're moving through, and within it, many are asking what still counts. Now, let's bring some stories in to illustrate this. These are people that I've worked with, not their real names, but you may see somebody like yourself or someone you know in these stories. Dr. Dr. Patel. Dr. Patel is 10 years post tenure. She built a community engaged program that students really rely on. But this fall, her dean has asked her for clearer ROI and quantifiable outcomes. Her sense of purpose didn't change, but it seems like the rules did. Suddenly, the work that once felt like a calling feels like a liability, and the work she loved now feels like a question mark. Alex, Director of Student Affairs. Alex's office adopted AI assisted advising. Now, there's a whole conversation or multiple conversations around AI and campusing, and we'll we'll delve into that at a later episode. But in terms of what's going on here in student affairs, this is supposed to help Alex's office. Helpful in theory, but it flattens the human-centered work that used to define their excellence. They still are excellent, but excellence doesn't look the same, doesn't look like it used to. And frankly, some are even wondering, like, what does this whole word excellence mean in this situation? Maria, Associate Dean. Maria has been carrying her college through budget cuts. She's holding the emotional labor of dozens of people, and the message she keeps hearing is we need to innovate faster. The ground beneath her keeps reshaping, and she keeps trying to stand on it. Next, we've got Jordan, non-tenured lecturer. Jordan teaches on an annual contract. The criteria for renewal changes every year. Sometimes it's teaching evaluation, sometimes it's credit hour production, sometimes it is departmental needs. While Jordan is excellent at teaching and students thrive and colleagues rely on them, Jordan has never been told what really counts long enough to trust it. The uncertainty is its own emotional burden and the low grade tremor that never fully settles. Next, we have a department chair. I'll call her Renee. Renee spent years chasing the metrics she believed mattered: grant totals, enrollment numbers, visibility, and external rankings. But this year, as the ground shifted again, she realized the metrics she had been chasing were out of alignment with the kind of leader she wanted to be. Raise your hand if that's ever been you. My hand is going up for those of you who aren't watching. What she thought counted no longer matched what she valued. So these are not stories of failure, they're stories of ground shifting beneath your feet, of people trying to find stability in a landscape that refuses to stay still. Now, part of this disorientation comes from the contradictions baked into our institution. You've probably heard some of these, and you can reach out to me if you have some other ones. We value innovation, but also don't change anything that might create conflict. Interesting. We support faculty wellness, but also mandatory meeting tomorrow at 7 a.m. or fill in the respective time. We're committed to student success, but also we're cutting staff who supports students. I know a bunch of us have heard that one. And last but not least, we believe in shared governance, but also we've already made the decision. That one really hurts. These contradictions create emotional whiplash and really make it hard to know where your efforts really matter. Naming that isn't cynicism, it's clarity. It helps you to see that responding normally to confusion and conflicting signals and schedules and requests. Um, how can you do that? How can you respond normally? What does normal look like when everything's always changing? But again, to have this change and ambiguity and shifting ground, all of that means that probably your responses to those changes, questioning yourself, the feelings that you're having are normal because it just seems so unsettling. Where do you even begin? So let's move a little further. Now, what you might hear as a result of these things is maybe I'm behind, maybe I'm the problem, maybe I didn't do enough. But I like to have us look at this a little differently. So this is what I'm going to call widening the lens. So if we look at it through the lens of economics, here's what matters. Value is contextual, worth shifts over time, currencies fluctuate, markets recalibrate, worth is renegotiated, and higher ed is recalibrating too. So the question to ask yourself through this lens is, what value am I defending that the system is no longer measuring? Next, let's look through the artist lens. Artists live in the gaps between meaning and recognition. They understand that the impact often shows up before the reward. So, through this lens, ask yourself what part of my work is meaningful, even if no one is measuring it yet. Tech lens. Technologists assume the ground will shift every year. I would even say more frequently than annually, they expect some shifts. Now, what they certainly know is constant evolution occurs. Change is not a crisis, it's a condition. So, through this tech lens, ask yourself, if the ground is shifting, what does adaptation, not self blame, look like for me? Now, these lenses aren't designed to, you know, comfort or confront you. They're meant to widen your frame. Because once the frame widens, you see you're not flailing, it's just that the ground is moving. So every good idea deserves tension. So the first point of tension is maybe the new metrics weren't wrong. Maybe the old ones were too narrow, too exclusionary, or too incomplete. Maybe accountability and relevance are overdue. So, new metrics, old metrics, right, wrong, indifferent, in the middle, but they change. So, think about those lenses and then think about how you can reframe them. Next one, maybe early career scholars aren't grieving the same things. They weren't shaped by the old rules, and their identity isn't tethered to them. And so this is a very interesting tension point for me because I've studied, role development, identity development, strain, and what it looks like when you're in different phases of your life or even different phases of your career, or should you pivot, or if you were separated from an institution or a position, and how that shows up differently in different people has always been interesting to me. And even as I reflect on that myself, so identity is something that maybe we could spend a little more time around and understanding how maybe a job is one thing and the title that you have is another thing, and your identity could be something different as well. So that might help in considering how these changes are occurring and how they may be impacting you or someone you know. The next one, I would say, is really ties to that, right? So the discomfort probably isn't singularly about values, but it probably leans more into identity. And those things are separate and distinct as well, even though they can complement or support or even, stand against what your identity is. So if your worth was built on and is tied to a set of measures, it's painful when those measures shift. That pain is human, not failure. Notice where that truth settles in your body as you reflect on what we just covered. Now, let's return to nature. And when we think about November, maybe you live in an area where there are trees. I've mentioned this before. There are lovely trees around where I live. And even if there's no trees where you live, I'm sure you've probably seen these fall pictures where the leaves turn different colors and then they fall, right? So they don't die, they don't drop on accident. It's part of a cycle. And trees actively cut off their leaves through abscission. This is a biological process where the leaves seal off from the tree, and the tree does this because the tree is trying to conserve water, protect the trunk, and survive the winter. Inside the branch, there's a biochemical signal that says, it's time, let this go, so the rest of you can live. So the leaves get let go. The tree is not becoming less, it's becoming ready, right? So, and I think it's just really amazing to see how this happens in nature as a protective and survival mechanism. So let's think about you. Are there parts of your professional identity, habits, roles, expectations that may be asking for their own version of abscission? Not because you failed, but because you are wise. Then there's the landscape metaphor. Higher ed is not a static terrain. It's more like a fault line. Pressure builds quietly for years before one quick rupture reshapes everything. Or like a shoreline, waves move slowly, eroding some areas, and while they're doing this, they deposit new sediment somewhere else. Sometimes the landscape changes gently, and sometimes it changes violently, but it always changes. The ground moves, trees adapt. Both are natural, both are survivable, both are happening right now. Here's what people don't often talk about. When the measures shift, meaning has to be rebuilt. Not overnight, not in one journal entry, not in one retreat. Meaning reconstruction happens slowly. So let's take a moment and slow down and think about it. Step one, notice the discomfort. Don't run from it. Name the ache. Step two, name the loss. Something is fading, a metrics, a role, a form of recognition. Step three, identify what's evolving. What part of you is outgrowing the old definition of excellence? Step four, imagine what value could look like for you now. Not for your unit, not for your dean, not for your institution, not for your department, for you. Meaning doesn't disappear, it reshapes. Now, take a breath, let your shoulders settle again. Here are three reflection questions, and let them land wherever they land. Question one, Where did I first notice the ground shifting this year? Question two, what truth have I been avoiding because I was too busy to feel it? Mm. And question three, what am I carrying that doesn't belong to me anymore? All right, so no need to answer these today. Just reflect on them honestly. At the center of this episode is a single question. What part of my worth have I been outsourcing to other people's scorecards? You don't need to fix anything today. You don't need to release anything today. That's December's work. For now, you only need to notice. In the show notes, you'll find a guided reflection for this episode. It's gentle, it's spacious, it invites noticing, not urgency. Prompts include what feels thinner this year? Where did I feel alive most? What metrics am I grieving? And what wants to be reborn? And the questions we explored together. This reflection sets the groundwork for December's episode, What Am I Choosing to Carry? As we move into December, the work becomes quieter, gentler, more precise. December isn't about noticing, it's about choosing. Choosing what stays, choosing what goes, choosing what deserves to cross the threshold into the new year. We'll take that step together. Thank you for spending time with me. Thank you for your honesty, and thank you for being part of a field that is shifting and reshaping itself. If you've been blaming yourself for feeling unsteady, I hope today offered you clarity. The ground is moving and you are adapting. This is November's work. Notice what still counts, not what used to count, not what others would say should count. What still counts now in this season of your life. I'm Dr. Loren M. Hill, your academic career advancement coach, and I will see you in December.